sun was dipping behind the pine trees of Redwood Creek, a small American town where everybody knew everybody, or at least they thought they did. The Friday night crowd at Earl's Roadhouse Café was louder than usual. Country music played on the jukebox, beer bottles clinked, and the smell of burgers filled the air. But the center of attention that evening wasn't the food or the music. It was the young woman sitting quietly at the corner booth. Her name was Ava Monroe, a soft-spoken waitress who had only lived in town for 4 months. She rarely talked about her past, and people rarely asked. She wore long sleeves every day, even in the blistering heat. Tonight, however, a slight slip of her cuff revealed a faded tattoo on her wrist, something the local troublemakers immediately noticed. At the bar, a group of men snickered. "Look at that," one of them whispered loudly enough for the entire cafe to hear. "Ava got herself a prison tattoo," another chimed in, "probably something she picked up in the back alley. Ain't no way that thing means anything important." A few customers laughed. Others pretended not to listen, but everyone's eyes drifted to Ava. Her face flushed, and she pulled her sleeve down quickly. She didn't defend herself, she never did. Here she was the quiet girl trying to make ends meet, a nobody to most. But one person took real offense to the mocking. Sitting at the far end of the cafe was a tall, broad-shouldered woman in a worn leather jacket. Her hair was tied back, aviator sunglasses resting on her head even though the sun had set. She had been riding through town, just stopping for a meal and a moment of quiet. On the back of her jacket was a patch that nobody in that room dared disrespect. HLLS Angels. Redwood Chapter. Her name was Raven Malone, a long-standing member of the Hells Angels MC, respected, feared, and known for having zero tolerance for disrespect, especially toward women trying to survive. Raven slowly set her fork down. The cafe went quieter, not because anyone knew what she was about to do, but because her presence always brought tension and unspoken warning. She turned toward the men at the bar. "You boys got something to say about that tattoo?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. "Or you just like hearing yourselves talk?" The men froze. One tried to laugh it off. "Relax, lady, we were just joking, she's just a waitress." Raven stood up. And that was enough to shut him up. Her boots thudded against the wooden floor as she approached Ava's table. She didn't touch her, didn't scare her. Instead, she sat down gently across from her. "Mind if I ask," Raven said softly, "how long you've been hiding that tattoo?" Ava swallowed hard. "A long time." Raven nodded slowly, as if she already knew the answer. "That tattoo," she said quietly, "isn't something to hide. Not here, not anywhere." The entire cafe watched, confused and curious. None of them knew that the tattoo they mocked was about to silence an entire Hells Angels clubhouse. The cafe felt frozen in time. Even the jukebox seemed quieter, as if waiting for the next moment to unfold. Ava stared at the leather-clad woman sitting across from her, unsure whether to be afraid or relieved. Raven Malone wasn't just any biker. She carried herself like someone who had lived through storms most people couldn't imagine. Raven leaned back in her seat, eyes steady on Ava. "You don't have to show it," she said gently, "but you should know I recognize that ink." Ava's breath hitched. Nobody had ever said that before. The men at the bar, suddenly pretending they had important conversations, kept glancing over, their earlier mocking now replaced with unease. The regulars in the cafe watched silently, sensing a shift they didn't understand. How do you recognize it?" Ava whispered. Raven didn't answer at first. Instead, she reached up and unzipped her leather jacket halfway. For a moment, Ava thought she was just getting comfortable, until Raven shrugged the jacket off completely and laid it beside her. The entire cafe gasped. Raven's arms were covered with ink, worn, meaningful, and unmistakably Hells Angels lineage. But one tattoo stood out, a symbol on her left shoulder, the same shape and design as the faded mark Ava had tried to hide. Ava's eyes widened. "You have it too." Raven nodded. "Every woman who survives the same hell you did carries this ink. It's not a gang mark. It's not prison ink. It's a survivor's badge." The cafe buzzed with unfamiliar whispers. People who had mocked Ava minutes ago now looked pale. Ava blinked rapidly, tears threatening. I got mine when I was 16. I left home. I didn't have anyone. A woman found me. She protected me for a while. She said the tattoo meant sisterhood, strength. Ava looked down. But when she passed away, I felt like I didn't deserve to wear it anymore. Raven's jaw tightened with emotion she rarely showed. That woman, she said quietly, was named Marla. Ava's heart nearly stopped. How do you know her name? Raven's voice softened. Because she saved me too. A stunned silence spread across the room. Ava shook her head in disbelief. You knew her. Knew her, Raven exhaled deeply. She was the closest thing I ever had to family. She took in girls no one cared about, taught them to fight, taught them to live. Raven tapped her matching tattoo. This mark is her legacy, and she didn't give it to just anyone. A single tear slid down Ava's cheek. For months, Raven continued, you've walked around thinking you were alone, thinking you were a nobody. She shook her head. But you're one of hers, which means you're one of ours. The cafe doors suddenly opened, and everyone turned. Walking inside were 3 more Hell's Angels women, each wearing the same patch as Raven, and each staring directly at Ava. Raven stood up, placing her jacket neatly over her arm. It's time you come with us, she said warmly. Your story isn't over, and neither is her legacy. Ava slowly rose from her seat, trembling, but not with fear. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. Ava followed Raven and the other Hell's Angels women out of the cafe, her heart pounding not with fear, but with a strange, rising strength she hadn't felt in years. The night air was cool, the rumble of Harley engines echoing across the parking lot. Raven handed her an extra helmet. You're safe, she said. You've always been safer with us than you ever knew. The ride to the Redwood Creek Hell's Angels Clubhouse was short, but unforgettable. For the first time, Ava wasn't running from something, she was riding towards something. When they arrived, dozens of bikes lined the gravel, and loud laughter spilled from inside. But the moment Raven pushed open the heavy steel door, everything changed. The clubhouse, usually rowdy and alive, went dead silent. Every biker, men and women, looked up as Ava stepped inside. Their eyes weren't hostile. They were searching, trying to understand why Raven had brought someone new. Raven didn't hesitate. She stood beside Ava, lifted her own sleeve, and tapped her survivor tattoo. Brothers, sisters, she announced. This girl carries Marla's mark. Gasps, murmurs, then absolute silence. Ava's chest tightened as Raven gently rolled up her sleeve, revealing the faded tattoo she had hidden for years. Dozens of hardened riders bowed their heads with unexpected respect. An older biker stepped forward, Broadman, the chapter's vice president. Anyone who carries that ink, he said quietly, is family here. Ava felt her throat close, but I don't know if I deserve. Raven cut her off. Marla believed you did, that's enough for all of us. And for the first time in her life, Ava's trembling stopped. The clubhouse didn't just accept her. They welcomed her home.